How many IPOs have you invested in so far?
Total, it may be around 100 plus IPOs. Fortunately, 80% of the IPOs have met with a positive outcome. My first IPO investment was in TCS. Since the time of listing, the wealth has grown 35x.
So what is, as of today, that sort of corpus which you have planned?
5 to 6, 7 crores, and I've already made about 80% of that goal has been met. So there are three major sources of passive income. One is about the rental. Second is the interest on the savings and the FDs.
Right.
And third is the dividend income. That typically comes around range of 1.2, 1.3. And the monthly expenses come around 70 to 80,000 per month.
So essentially you're saying that your passive income easily takes
Meets
care of
my
your monthly
expenses,
expenses.
yes.
Did you ever consider early retirement?
Yeah, I've been thinking about my retirement plans, but so far I do not have any plan to retire early. I plan to continue to work for about 4-5 years more. So it's more about having to, continue to work and be a part of the tech industry, and not so much about retiring early to make sure that I don't have to work, because I thoroughly enjoy the work that I'm doing in the tech industry.
Lovely. Let's start with your first salary, right? What was your first salary and what did you first do with the money which you first got?
With Tech Mahindra, I started my job with 1.2 lakhs per annum, so about 10,000 per month. And with my first salary, after offering a few laddus to the god, I opened a Demat account and then started with my investment journey from there. I worked there for a couple of years, then moved to Persistent. When I made to a switch to Persistent, it was about 3. Worked there for a couple of years.
Right.
And then moved to Cisco Systems, went to about 8. Gradually promoted myself to a tech lead and team lead position, and had an opportunity to travel to US. After returning back, I changed to ADP. When I worked with ADP, I worked as a senior consultant. It went to about 18, and then worked there for about 4 years. And then when I moved into Schlumberger, it went to about 30 lakhs. And now with 50% salary hike, I'm working with the private firm.
For this progression which you've done from salary to salary, were there any specific strategies to ensure that these jumps are happening?
I was always conscious about making my job change. The salary hikes were about 50 to 100% whenever I made a job change. At the same time, I'm remaining relevant in the market with the skills that I have.
Before we get into the interesting bits of the conversation and learn more about your financial journey, if you could maybe tell us a little bit more about your growing years.
It was a typical middle class family, making sure whether we have to walk a few kilometers just to save onto the bus fare.
Right.
Or for that matter, living on a very basic vada pav thing for a whole day. So those were the kind of experiences that I grew up with, and my relationship with money was around the same factor, where we want to make sure that whatever we have, we spend them judiciously and make sure that we live a frugal life. But over a period of these 2 decades, I think the relationship has also changed a lot, because the world has changed, the market has changed, the basic financial status has also changed. So the relationship has also changed and evolved over a period of 20 years.
How did the knowledge of investing come in, and when did you start your investing journey?
During my college days, I was having a friend who was a Gujarati community. So whenever I visited his place, the conversations around stock market, investments, that kind of fascinated me. So after my first salary in 2003, I started with a Demat account in ICICI Direct and started my financial journey from there. And my first IPO was TCS.
And you're still holding on to those
And
shares?
I'm still holding each share of it still now. Since the time of listing, the wealth has grown 35x.
Lovely. So could you maybe throw some light on that evolution? What are your current goals at, and how have they evolved through the years?
The goal was not specific to make a big wealth, or for that matter, making sure that we secure a future. It was primarily guided towards making multiple sources of income.
Right.
But I think in this last few years, about 10 years or so, I think I've tried to change that philosophy a bit. So I typically follow a bucket strategy, wherein I allocate a specific bucket for a specific expense. And whenever that particular event happens in my life, I will utilize the money from that specific bucket.
So currently, if I may ask, what are the buckets which you have planned for?
So there are 2 buckets that are there at the moment. One is for my child's higher education, and second is for my retirement planning.
How have you sort of estimated that this is the amount which you want to reach? And what are those amounts which maybe you have for this particular bucket right now?
So initially, when I started with the investment for this bucket, I had kept a goal of 60 lakhs in my mind. So when I researched about this, the child education or a higher education cost involved in the US, typically if you look at any professional degree, it comes around 30 lakhs per year for a tuition fees. So I started with that amount, and then I've accounted for 2 years of education. and then accounted for the inflation that will come into picture. We started with this activity when we were about to expect my first child, and at that point I had started the investment into SIP journey. When
Right.
I gradually started with about 10K per month, and then with every passing year I upped that amount by about 20-25%.
Right.
Whenever I had a bonus amount that came to me, I parked that amount, and it's been about 15 years, 14 years that I've started with that journey.
So, what is, as of today, that sort of corpus which you have planned in terms of your complete financial corpus as of today's date?
I had kept a goal of about yearly expense times 80, 5 to 6, 7 crores is the goal that I have kept for myself. And I've already made about 80% of that goal has been met.
Fantastic. So, Ashish, now let's come to numbers, right?
Okay.
In terms of your portfolio split currently.
So I have 35% in my real estates. About 27% is a combination of stocks and mutual funds.
Right.
11% comes from the retirals like the PPF, EPF, National Pension Scheme. FD is about 10%, and the balance comes from the savings account.
So, considering all this, Ashish, I think let me just put one basic question, right? What are your eventual financial goals?
So one goal that we have kind of decided as a family is to have generational wealth. It's not just about the financial assets or savings that you have accumulated over a period of time that we want to leave for the next generation, but it's also about the human capital, which talks about the skills, the knowledge that you have acquired. I don't want to be in the same situation when it comes to my kids.
Right.
I want to make sure that I have sufficient capital allocated to them so that they can start whatever they want to start with the capital and the knowledge that I will pass on to them.
So, very interesting point, this one, because I don't think people usually talk about leaving generational wealth. I think usually it's always using generational wealth. So, Ashish, in your investing journey, now it's been 2 decades. You must obviously have a bunch of experiences that you've had over the years. Maybe you could throw light on 2 or 3 mistakes which you may have done.
So if you recall, I have invested a lot of money through the IPO route,
Right.
and it has given me a lot of money. But I've also realized that investing in the right IPO is extremely important.
Right.
So if we talk about mistakes, my investment in Reliance Power IPO was a disaster.
Right.
Though the company has become debt free over a period of many years, but still it has not been able to meet the IPO price. Another classic mistake that I recall is from Jet Airways. The company, as you all know, has gone bankrupt. Nobody knows what is happening with the investment. Where is the NCLT proceeding going? So that's another mistake that I've committed.
If I can ask, how many IPOs have you invested in so far in the last 20 years?
So in total, it may be around 100 plus IPOs.
So what kind of maybe diligence or process do you undergo when you're deciding that you want to invest in a company's IPO?
I think the moat for the company is extremely important. So moat essentially means that is the company able to command higher pricing without impacting its market share.
Right.
The competition that the company has, who are the major players in the market that are competing with the current company, the financial health of the company, and what is the relationship of the founding committee members with the company itself. If the founders are heavily invested in the company and that they feel that the future of the company is bright, they will never try to dilute their stake in the company.
Right.
But if you have old investors who are looking for an exit, they will typically come and sell their stake via the IPO. So you need to be wary about those kind of investments that are happening. So those are the important factors that I do consider when I am investing in the IPOs.
And what kind of resources do you use to look for these things, like your financial health numbers? What kind of things do you read or look at?
So for the financial health of the company, you can certainly look at the red herring prospectus. Red herring prospectus is the information where the company itself publishes to the general public, which explains in detail about the risk, about the investments that they've had. All that information is publicly available on the websites as well as on the newspapers.
Ashish, so you have talked about being in the tech sector, and obviously you love the sector a lot. What is the importance of financial planning for people working in the IT sector?
I think since people who are working in the tech industry, they are so much into the IT world that they tend to overlook the importance of financial planning. And because of that, sometimes they do not feel secure in terms of finances going forward in their life. And as you know, the world is changing a lot. The jobs they consider is like a permanent thing that they're going to have. The same kind of salary will continue to persist. None of this is guaranteed. So I think it's very important for every engineer to start thinking about financial planning so that any event in the future where the jobs are kind of axed or if the company thinks about laying off, people who have done a good amount of planning will not be taken by surprise and will continue to lead a healthy life.
One last thing I want to ask you is, if you had to go through this entire 20-year journey again, is there anything you would have done differently from what you have done in the 20 years of investing?
I was the very first one in my family to think about investing in a different way. So, had I had the opportunity where I could relive this entire 20 years, I would do it with a lot of confidence, maybe
Right.
taking a bigger bet. Because when I allocated lower amounts, I think the results that we get at the end of 20 years is good in terms of percentages, but the absolute value is not that high that we
Right.
would want to do it. So if you can do a good amount of allocation early on, I think that plays a big role in creating a corpus at the end of 20 years.
Thank you for watching and supporting our channel. If you like the stories we tell, here's your chance to be a part of it. If you or anybody you know has an interesting financial journey to share, then please fill the form in the pinned comment below and we'll get in touch with you.